Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host, Mitch. Glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today we've got an episode of Spare Change. Some episodes just don't fit in any of my other playlists, so this is where they end up. The topics on these episodes can vary pretty widely, so stay tuned to see what's in store for this one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And while you're at it, subscribe and review our podcast as well. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. So in Commander, there are a ton of commanders to pick from, and it takes forever to go through every single one to see which one you might want to build around. I'm going to try to simplify that process by tackling as many commanders as I can in one episode. So today we've got blue commanders in 10 seconds or less. I'm going to go over every single blue commander and try to summarize them as best as I can in what they're about in 10 seconds or less. Will I not be able to cover every aspect of certain commanders? Of course, it's 10 seconds, sheesh. But I'll cover as much as I can to help you with your decision on picking a blue commander. So get your 10-second timers ready for that first commander, and let's jump into it. First up, there's Urza, who lets you tap your artifacts for mana, so you put a bunch of cheap artifacts into play, you tap them all for mana, and then you use his ability to cast things for free off the top. Next up is Talrain, who likes when you cast instant or sorceries, you get a 2/2 Drake for each one that you cast, so yeah, cast sorceries and instants, make Drakes, swing through, and win. And then there's Brawl, who reduces the cost of your instants and sorceries, which is good because he absolutely wants you to literally counter everything. Next up, there's Emery, who costs less based on your artifacts in play, mills you when it comes in, and it lets you cast artifacts for free from your graveyard. Yeah, talk about combo. And then there's Azami, Lady of Scrolls. Do you like wizards? Do you like drawing cards? Great, you like Azami. She likes wizards and drawing cards. Next up, there's Sai, who gives you a Thopter every single time you cast an artifact, and then you can take 2 of his wonderful creations and break them in half to draw a card. And then there's Unesh, who might seem like a very friendly Sphinx tribal deck, but it's not. It's just a factor fiction machine with Omniscience or Dream Halls in play, so everyone's in trouble on the table. Next up, there's Teferi, who asks the question, hey, do you have a Chain Veil in play? Because if so, we win the game, and if not, what are you doing talking to me? Go get that Chain Veil. Next up, there's Tetsuko Umezawa, who is all about very, very small or very, very big creatures with very, very small toughness. It's very, very fun. And then you can play Braids if you want to cause absolute chaos at your table and act like it was not your fault. Hey, I didn't make them play that Ulamog, they played it. Next up, there's God Eternal Kefnet, who can basically copy an instant or sorcery that you're just drawing, but let's be honest, you're just going to use that to cast extra turn spells and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And then there's Memnarch, who lets you turn all of your opponent's things into artifacts, then you steal those things that are now artifacts, and then you lose all your friends. Next up, there's Naban, who's basically just a Panharmonicon for wizards, so yeah, again, if you like wizards, blue is the color for you. And then there's Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which can tap to loot, and then potentially turn into a Planeswalker if you actually want to work to get your Planeswalker in play. I'm looking at you, Teferi. Next up, there's Thassa Deep Dwelling, which asks the question, hey, have you always wanted a Conjurer's Closet in your command zone? And Kami the Crescent Moon is similar because it's asking, hey, have you always wanted a Howling Mine in your command zone? Next up, we've got Thassa God of the Sea, which is not a Conjurer's Closet, but it does let you scry, and it makes creatures unblockable. And then there's Jalira, which is a polymorph on a stick, but not for legendary creatures, so boo-hoo, it doesn't work with your Eldrazi Titans. And then there's Fibbleflip, who is an Elvish Visionary that asks, hey, do you have a Proteus Staff in play and a lot of time on your hands? Next up is Arkham Dagsum, who likes to get rid of small artifacts and then turn them into bigger artifacts, because yeah, that's powerful. And then there's Narameha, who's asking you, hey, do you want a way to combo with Ghostly Flicker and cards like it from your command zone? Cool, let's do that, okay, fun. Next up, there's Nezahal, which has an absurd amount of text, but basically it's this. It's a Mystic Remora that can protect itself, and it gives you no maximum hand size, and it can't be countered. Okay, I got through it all. And then there's a Tempest, who wants you to run a wide variety of converted mana costs in your deck, so you can kill your opponents in the weirdest of ways. Next up, there's Captain the Mindful, which is a 5/5 flying indestructible god that really wants you to have a full hand, but again, what blue deck doesn't? And then there's Mistform Ultimates, which asks, hey, have you always wanted a 3/3 changeling in your command zone that does nothing else, and are you a hipster? Cool, let's do this. Next up, there's Arcanus Omnipotent, which likes to draw cards. You're in blue, you like to draw cards. Let's tap it, draw some cards, untap it, then draw some more cards. Then maybe untap it again and draw some cards. Cool, let's draw cards. Next up, there's Patron of the Moon, which is what would happen if a blue deck wished it was green, because you can put lands from your hand into play tapped with it. And then there's Muzio, who likes having high mana costed artifacts in play, so then he can go get more high mana costed artifacts. Next up, there's Gadwick the Wizen, who says, hey, do you like Blue Sun Zenith and tapping things? Awesome, dude, did we just become best friends? Sweet, let's do this. Next up, there's that Adele, which steals artifacts from your opponent's decks, but let's be honest, you're just going to steal their soul rings to rub it in their face and make them sad. And then there's Jenga Taxis, which you choose as your commander. If you want to lose your friends, you just flip it over, and before the game even starts, your friends say, why did you choose that as your commander? And you say, because I'm a terrible person. And then there's Teferi, Mage of Zalfir, which says, hey, do you like to go fast and make others go slow? Also, check out Knowledge Pool. That thing's pretty cool. You should probably include that in my deck. And then there's Padim, which likes when you have artifacts and likes when you have the biggest artifact, because then you draw cards, which is a very blue thing. And then there's Kaho, which is basically an Isochron Scepter, which tutors for dramatic reversals. So if you just want a 2-card combo in your command zone, there you go. Next up, there's Sakashima the Imposter, which says, hey, have you ever wanted a bounceable clone in your command zone? And then there's Slin Vodo, which is not a death metal band, but a Leviathan that likes other really big sea monster creatures. And then there's Blind Seer, which is just actually Urza in a terrible disguise, and he says, hey, go get your Will Breaker type effects and let's have some fun. And then there's Thrix the Sudden Storm, which says, hey, do you like spells that have a very high converted mana cost? Awesome, I'll make them ever so slightly cheaper to cast. And then there's Kaiga the Tide Star, which you play clones, you make copies of Kaiga, they die, you steal your friend's creatures, they get sad, you have fun. And then there's Empress Galena, which also likes to steal, but just legendary things, you know, like commanders. And then there's Sun Quan, which gives all your creatures horsemanship, which is like flying, but it's horses, so your opponents can't block your things on horses. Next up, there's Shisei, Heart of Oceans, which has to remove counters from your permanents or it dies, but yeah, get your Dark Depths ready, I guess. And then there's Stitch of Drolf, which likes to mill creatures and then exile 2 of those creatures and turn it into a vanilla zombie combination. Next up, there's Ambassador Laquatus, who says, hey, do you just want to make a mono blue deck whose sole purpose is generate infinite mana so you can mill everyone out? Sweet, I'm the commander for you. And then there's Tanawa, who makes all your lands phase out, which is a very, very bad thing unless you're casting Sunder, and then it's very, very, very good. Next up, there's Lorthos, the Tidemaker, which really likes 8, because it's an octopus, so it's mana cost, it's power, it's toughness, and paying 8 and tapping 8 things, so yeah, it's an octopus, 8 things. And then there's Kapala, Warden the Waves, who is for players who like merfolk, but don't like when they're targeted. And then there's Abishin, Cephalid Emperor, who can use all your great cephalids to tap permanents, or you can just play blue, 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 and tap all creatures without flying. And then there's Caliphie, who's like Kapala, but for all creatures and enchantments you control, but she protects them half as well as Kapala does. Next up, there's Tromokratus, which asks the question, hey, do you want to play Mono Blue Voltron? Because if so, I might be the one for you. And then there's Ixidor, which pumps your morphs all the way up to 3 3s, and it can also turn them up for potentially cheaper depending on which morph it is. Next up, there's Lujan, which has horsemanship, and when it deals damage to an opponent, you draw. So, yay, horses, can't block them because you're on a horse again. Wow. Next up, there's Tamara, who just says, hey, do you like drawing cards but not actually drawing them and instead just like basically choosing from the top 3? Okay, awesome. Let's just take a lot of time and do that. Next up, there's Haldvan, which if you're in mono blue, you're playing it without Paco, which is its partner. So he's literally just looking for his dog. He doesn't do anything without Paco. Next up, there's the Hid to June of the Lamp, which is a 5/6 vanilla flyer that you can cast for slightly cheaper if you've got like a lamp in play or something. And then there's Hydar, which can bounce 1 thing for 2 mana if you just, paid up for all those snow-covered islands. Next up, there's Rain, who says, yeah, go ahead and target my things, because if you do, I get to draw cards, and if I'm enchanted, I draw even more. Next up, there's Kira, Great Last Spinner, which says, yeah, sure, you can target my things, but they're countered if you only do it once. If you do it twice, you, pop my bubble, and then, yeah, you got it. Next up, there's Lawan, Cephalid Empress, who's for that player that really wants to ruin their friend's day that plays Sea Monster Tribal. And then Vendilion Click is the commander for that modern player that's coming into Commander for the first time and doesn't really understand what's good in Commander and what's not. Next up, there's Sir Eleonora, who's a Voltron hand-sized commander. And then Baron Master Wizard sacrifices things and throws them at his problems to solve them. And then there's Maloku the Clouded Mirror, which says, hey, would you like to trade all your lands for 1/1 flyers so you can swing out and probably lose? All right. And then there's Uyo Silent Prophet, which says, hey, is 2 lands and 2 mana worth getting an Expropriate for free? Absolutely, let's do this. Next up, there's Cloudhoof Kirin, which is a Spirit Arcane Tribal mill deck, which is most definitely a thing. And then there's Venser Shaper Savant, which likes to bounce pretty much anything. Spells, permanents, whatever, just bounce it. Bouncing's fun. And then there's Hakim, who likes getting an aura back from your graveyard to put on him, but then he also likes blowing up all the auras on him. And then there's Illyrios, who likes to create reflections and doesn't like to untap when you have reflections. And then there's Urtai, who likes to counter things. Yes, just counter things, that's all he likes to do. Next up, there's Rebecca, who's doubly effective as a Tim because it can ping for 2 damage instead of 1, but it's doubly ineffective because it doesn't untap during your next untap step. And then there's Lanessa Zephyr Mage, which allows you to pay a ton of mana to just bounce 1 creature, and you can't use Grandeur because you're in Commander and it's a singleton format. Next up, there's Hagura the Still Wind, which is for all those Ninja fans that haven't switched their decks over to Yuriko decks just yet. And then there's the Unspeakable, which is a 6/7 flying trampler for 9, and it can get you 1 arcane card back whenever it hits. Next up, there's Alexi Zephyr Mage, which can bounce a ton of creatures at the cost of some mana and discarding 2 cards. And then there's Sora Maro, which is just Maro, but flying, and it can bounce lands back to your hand to draw. Next up, there's Zuyu, which is an 8/8 vanilla that can't attack unless an opponent has an island. And then there's Myojin of Seeing Winds, which is a 3/3 for 10, and it wishes that it didn't specifically say played from your hand to get that divinity counter. Next up, there's Lu Meng, which, yeah, just horses. Horsemanship. Horses are powerful. And then Hisoka is otherwise known as Worse Kozilek the Great Stortion for mono blue. Then there's Alhamrat, who says, hey, do you want to see all your friends' hands and make one of them angry? Cool, let's do this. Next up, there's Sun C, and yeah, horsemanship and bouncing. Horses! Next up, there's Lady Sun, who likes to tap to bounce herself and another creature back to the owner's hands, but only before attack. Lu Su also only likes to do things before attacking, and he can tap to draw you a card. And then Zujin can also tap before attacking to make one thing unblockable. And finally, last but not least, there's a Ryo Soratami Ascendant, which you actually can't use because it's banned. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your favorite mono blue commander is and why. And make sure you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who help make this show possible. I truly couldn't do any of this without your support. If you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, including being able to vote on future commanders for deck techs. There are even tiers where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. You can check out all the Patreon tiers and rewards at patreon.com/commandersquarters. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again, and have a good one.